Hey, welcome back everybody to another video session with Brian. I am the host and moderator of Brian Speaks On, and I know it's been a while, just a lot of different things going on, things that I was trying to get into, and some things that just part of life, nothing bad, everything is everything. But anyway, you know how I do on my page. I usually touch upon a hot button topic by singling out a single issue and using it as a catapult or a springboard into a much broader issue. And I think we are definitely singling out a very worthy subject about this right now, and it's been a hot button topic for over a year now. It's one of those topics that, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because it keeps on coming back, because people refuse to just accept what things are. And when you refuse to accept how things are, that's how you prevent things from moving forward and moving on and, actually disappearing, like how some people would like this issue to disappear, even though it doesn't. That issue right now is the Colin Kaepernick blackball. Well, that's what a lot of people are calling it, him being blackballed out of the NFL, and I agree with it. So what I would like to do is I would like to tackle upon that subject as to why I am of the very strong sentiment that is exactly what's happening. And what I want to do is I want to argue a lot of these weak arguments, basically debunk all these weak arguments that are being made to justify why he is not employed in the NFL right now. Now, before I even go into all of these bullet points, what I want to point out is that as it applies to this situation, it's not simply about him not working. It is about a much bigger issue here. It is about the suppression of free speech, the suppression of being able to voice your dissent peacefully in a way where it doesn't affect anything related to where you are or what you are doing, but you are still being penalized and punished for it. And we all know that the reason for this penalization is to set an example, like Richard Sherman so very well articulated the other day, that it's not even about football. It's about, boy, stay in your place. And I think that's the sentiment shared with millions of people, but for some reason misunderstood by millions of other people. So what I want to do is I want to tackle all, at least the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I want to tackle all those issues, those weak excuses being given as to why it's okay for him not to be working right now and not be on an NFL roster. So first of all, the first thing I want to point out is to those who were not understanding why he even took it upon himself to take his stance, and everybody that said that it was going to be something that was just a flash in the pan, he was doing it for his own little selfish reasons, and nobody's going to be talking about Kaepernick in a year. Well, I guess that was already debunked. And let me be one of the people to speak on the fact that his protest actually succeeded. People are thinking like Cap took the L because he lost his job in the NFL, not understanding that his stance succeeded in what he wanted to accomplish. He wanted to bring up the narrative. He wanted the narrative to be a topic that gets spoken about and debated on and passionately, pointed out and counterpointed, which is what exactly has happened. He succeeded in what he was aiming for. He already put it out there that he was of the understanding of what that could cost him, and he was willing to go there. So, do you think that Colin Kaepernick is somehow sitting alone in his room somewhere, depressed and crying woe is I to the fact that he's not working. He already put it out there from the very beginning that he was prepared for this to happen. So I don't think Cap is necessarily in mourning right now about not being on a squad. Now, just because he's not mourning about not being on the squad doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve to be on a squad. So again, his protest succeeded, but it succeeded in ways that people didn't understand in the beginning, that this is really more about an overall situation. See, and I'm pretty sure it's no surprise to him. I'm pretty sure it was designed to succeed in the way that it has succeeded for him. I'm pretty sure it was his strategy for it to happen this way, because if you actually took the time to listen to what he was saying, he's pointing out systemic inequality, systemic oppression. Notice the constant word, systemic. The fact that this happened to him is a systemic, blackballing. So what he has accomplished outside of raising the narrative about police brutality against people of color is he has exposed the system for existing. People that didn't think that such a thing could exist, that a player could be literally blackballed out of the league. He has succeeded in exposing that, shedding light on it to people who previously didn't really either believed it or just couldn't believe that such a thing could happen, which is kind of a similar reaction to a lot of sociological things that people can't seem to grasp when other people are telling them that it exists, until they see it for themselves in like a stark contrasting light, something that you can't ignore. So the fact that you see this happening puts it right in front of you. Now you can no longer unsee it. So he succeeded in multiple things beyond raising the conversation about police brutality. He also exposed what I like to call a racial consciousness of America that still exists. It exists maybe in a different way than what it existed back in the 60s and prior to the 60s civil rights movement, but it still exists. There is still a situation where there is a systemic strategy to eradicate the thing about black people showing dissent. Anybody that speaks against the system, there becomes this methodology, this strategy of completely destroying that person or that movement. It can't just simply be a thing where it gets hushed down or minimized. No, they have to completely eradicate it. They have to destroy it. They have to destroy this person's reputation and whatever movement they are about. They have to completely slander it, because you have to set the example to dissuade others who may be, who may want to jump on board or take the baton and and push the movement a little bit further. So he has exposed several different things at one time as it applies to his taking a stance. Now again, this man did nothing technically wrong on any level. Whatever your moral compass dictates to you, it still doesn't mean that he did something that was a violation of anything. All he did was he did something that you didn't like. So basically this man can't get a job because he did something that a lot of people simply just don't like. So when you talk about this whole argument about, well, private companies have the right to pick and choose who they can employ based upon their personal convictions and so on and so forth. We're not talking about somebody that supports the the Klan. But we're not talking about somebody that supports terrorists or sympathizes with people or movements that are oppressive to other people. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about somebody that supports violence towards other people or anything like that. We're talking about somebody that actually supports what this nation is supposed to stand for, which is the freedom to express your discourse with something that you feel isn't right, which is what he basically did. It's what we call a constitutional right. But people seem to forget about things like that when they do stuff that they don't like. That's when you become a treasoner. That's when you become an anti-American, a radical, a militant. All these scary words, that people want to throw out there. But any form of black defiance is basically hated and eradicated. History has shown that. This goes way before 2017, 2016. This goes back pretty much to the roots of the American way. So I think another thing that was misunderstood and kind of like spouted out by people that supposedly know so much about the situation was that, he didn't understand what he was getting into. He was getting into something that was way bigger than him. And so he probably had no idea that it was going to get to this level of discourse and he was going to lose his job. Well, again, like I said already, he already put it out there before this became a truly big issue that he was prepared to lose his job. He was prepared to sacrifice his career for what he stood for. So obviously he knew that it was going to become a big deal. I think another thing that people don't understand is, as it applies to this whole he didn't understand what he was getting into thing, you need to understand who helped him in his transition to becoming an activist. One of the main people that has served as his mentor is Dr. Harry Edwards. Now, for those that don't know history and don't know who Dr. Harry Edwards is, he's a famous sociologist. But he's not just that. He's actually an historically recognized activist for the black cause. And the reason why he's historically recognized is because he has done such things as he's helped Muhammad Ali organize the Ali Summit. With Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell. Those people that are now heralded as titans of the pro-black movement. But back then, guess what they were? They were in the same boat as Kaepernick is now. The only difference being that they didn't get blackballed out of their professions. Well, they tried to with Ali, especially with that Vietnam thing. That little Vietnam thing when he actually went to jail and spoke out against the government. Everybody love Ali now, though. But back then, I don't think he was quite as loved, for that whole Vietnam, draft evasion thing. But again, I digress with that. But again, Dr. Harry Edwards helped organize the Ali Summit. He also, let me try to remember here. He also wrote The Revolt of the Black Athlete, which was a, publication that he wrote way back in the days, which actually helped inspire Carlos Rogers and Tommy Smith to do the world famous Olympic Black Power salute, with the whole black glove in the air at the Olympics. Yeah, he inspired that. So Dr. Harry Edwards goes way back as it applies to activism. So I think when you have a mentor like Dr. Harry Edwards consulting you and giving you words of wisdom, and I don't think it's a thing where he didn't understand what he was getting into. I think he understood exactly what he was getting into. So, moving on to another point. The whole thing about the issue with what's happened recently in terms of him not being able to get a job with the Miami Dolphins. They went and signed Jay Cutler, which, you know, technically, arguably is the better move in that specific situation because of who Jay Cutler's ties are with the head coach currently. But before they signed Cutler, they made this really big deal out of Cap wearing this T-shirt that had Malcolm X and Fidel Castro on it. And, you know, there are a lot of people that don't know really much of anything about Cuba talking a whole lot as if they know a whole lot about Cuba. Now, you could talk about the Cuban community in Miami and how so many of them despise Fidel Castro and how Fidel Castro is this horrible person. But for all the people that you could find that are Cuban that dislike Castro to the fullest, you can find just as many Cubans that love and revere Fidel Castro. So that's something that, you know, I can't get deep into it because I'm not a Cuban, so I can't say much. But I have spoken to different Cuban people and I have heard both sides, and it is not just simple. It is not something that is just that simple. It's not just a black and white. The life of Fidel Castro is a very complex one, and you know, America chooses to propagandize the life of Fidel Castro in a certain way and for good reason, because they did everything they could to try to tear Castro down. And a lot of the reason why a lot of these Cubans had to get on these rafts and risk their lives swimming with the sharks just to get to America is because America is basically the nation that put Cuba in the position that it's in and has been since Castro took power. You know, they're the ones that put all these economic sanctions against Cuba and you know, pretty much coerced NATO to follow up with it. So, you know, it's kind of weird that people would become refugees to the very nation that put your home country in the position that it's in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. But again, the life of Fidel Castro is a very complex one. I would definitely advise people to read more about Fidel Castro before they go so hard on everything negative Castro. You know, I don't think you go from a freedom fighter who fought alongside Che Guevara, you know, for not only the Cuban cause but for the African cause of African the African freedom movement, and just become this fascist dictator. You know, I don't think it was quite that simple, but again, that's something for another day. So the whole thing about Castro being the reason why you couldn't sign Cap, because you got a Cuban community that's sensitive to that. Well, I'm pretty sure there were plenty of dog lovers in Philadelphia when they signed Vic. Pretty sure there were plenty of spousal abuse victim sympathizers in Baltimore, you know, when they kept Ray Rice. Pretty sure there were a lot of people that were not feeling the whole double murder thing when Baltimore also had Ray Lewis. So yeah, there are groups of people that won't like certain stuff or certain players getting signed to be on their team. But once that player gets signed on that team and they start scoring touchdowns for you, I think the vitriol gets a little bit weaker and more diluted as time goes by, as is the case with all of those other examples that I just pointed out. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that could have blown over with time. Again, just saying. And to all these black sports radiocasters and talking heads who have been blasting Kaepernick in terms of the whole, oh yeah, I totally support what he's saying, I just don't like the method in which he said it, you know. But you want to turn around and praise the Alis of the world and praise the Jim Browns and praise the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars of the world. You're like the epitome of hypocrisy when it comes to that, because those players did the exact same thing in their time. And what do you think was the mantra of all these liberals and colored folks of your ilk back then? You know, oh, you're making it bad for the rest of us. You know, we just trying to get along and get on. Yeah, okay. Imagine if the forefathers of your ilk would have dissuaded those great men of history from doing what they did, from being as brave as they are. And there are many different ways that you're supposed to attack a problem. You don't just attack a problem in one way. Yeah, for all of the MLKs of the world, you're supposed to have the Malcolm X's as well, because a complex issue doesn't get solved simply, because it's complex. So you have to attack it. You have to attack it in turn the same way. You have to be complex, and you have to do it from multiple angles. Kaepernick's stance is just simply another angle of attacking a complex problem. So instead of trying to just, shuck and jive it up, and play along with the supremacist view, the liberal supremacist view, because most liberals will say the same thing. Oh, I totally support what Cap is talking about. I just wish that he would have done it in a way where it wouldn't have offended me. So it's really more about placating to your feelings than it is to talking about a truly, relevant subject, something that needs to be talked about and moved upon from. So it's really more about, well, you need to say it in a way where I'll like it. And again, other people have done that. Other people have articulated the problem and done it in a very classy and nice way, in a gentlemanly fashion. Remember LeBron and Carmelo and at the ESPY Awards? Remember they had that nice moment where they spoke up, and it was a wonderful thing. I won't minimize the effect that had. I really won't, because what they did was brave in its own way. But how far did that go? You see people still talking about that? No. So when you do it the nice way, yeah, you get some nice rounds of applause, and some people you may even convert a couple of people with their way of thinking. You may enlighten a few people, but that's just one way of doing it. And which way is the way that's still being spoken about? The Carmelo LeBron summit at the ESPYs, or what we're talking about now? So again, you can't just say, oh, well, you have to do it in a certain way. Who are you to say that? That's just the height of hubris, when and wanting things your way, which is a form of privilege in itself. If you think about it, you want to be enlightened the way that you want to be enlightened, instead of opening your ears and opening your mind and listening to what a person has to say. Is that not the height of hubris and privilege? I mean, hey, maybe it's just me. So again, now let's get to the actual argument that people are really trying to come up with as it involves his football skills. Everybody wants to say, oh, Cap is washed up, he's a bum. Look what he did last year. Let's look at what he did last year. He threw for 16 touchdowns versus 4 interceptions, and I believe it was 11 games. Now, that's a 4-to-1 ratio, touchdown to interception ratio. How is that not good? He was third in the league in rushing among quarterbacks, playing in only 11 games. How is that not good? Now, you want to talk about how they didn't win many games. I think they won one game the whole time, that he started. Well, how about you tell me who was going to win many more games with that roster? As a matter of fact, tell me who the 49ers offensive skill possession players were. Now, you can't say Carlos Rogers, because Carlos Rogers was injured and he didn't play he didn't play the whole time Kaepernick was QBing. So you can't, so don't even use his name. Now give me one skilled possession player, starter, for the 49ers. I'll wait. Now, you do remember that the 49ers defense was absolutely dreadful and horrible, right? You know how many games they actually lost that they were leading in the fourth quarter that Kaepernick had actually put them ahead? He can't play defense either. He can't play both offense and defense. He's not Deion Sanders. So you got to kind of chalk it up to the fact that his team was complete garbage. Now look at Blaine Gabbert. They want to say, oh, he lost his starting job to Blaine Gabbert. He lost his starting job to Blaine Gabbert because he was injured. He was not fully healthy and recovered. The season started. You had to start with Gabbert. How did that work out for Gabbert? With the same roster, with the same team, what did he do? He lost his job to Kaepernick. So Kaepernick, with the same team that Gabbert had, did what? He did better than Gabbert. But guess who's a backup on another squad? Blaine Gabbert. Guess who's not? Right. Now you want to tell me that a potential playoff team and or Super Bowl contender would rather have Geno Smith as their backup, or would rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick as their backup? Now I'm not talking about teams where it doesn't really matter one way or the other. I'm talking about playoff / Super Bowl contending team. How about Seattle? I believe Gabbert is the backup in Seattle, ironically. So you'd rather have those three guys as your backup QB in the event that your starter goes down. Now, you guys have something to play for, but you'd rather have those guys on your squad than Kaepernick because they're somehow better than him. Okay, right. You know, that makes a whole lot of sense. So again, just think about the statistics. 16 TDs to 4 interceptions on a team where you can't even name their starting receivers, running back, tight end. And the defense is absolutely horrible. And he still did what he did. But you want to tell me that he's washed up and he's a bum. And he's somehow not better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, who threw 6 touchdowns, threw 6 INTs in one game. You know, he's not better than Geno Smith. He's not better than Blaine Gabbert, the guy that couldn't hold on to the starting job on the same team as Cap last year. But yeah, they can get signed, but he can't. Right. So that's pretty much the stuff that I can remember off the top of my head, the points that I wanted to shoot down and just try to basically do it in an objective way. Like, yeah, I am showing my bias towards Kaepernick. I'm showing my bias towards his stance, what he's standing for. That's what I'm showing my bias towards. I don't know Cap personally. I do see the stuff that he is doing, and I truly admire him for that. His humanitarianism efforts. Yeah. What are you doing out there? You know, you're so quick to shoot, you're so quick to throw rocks, but what are you doing? You know? So, as it applies to all of those points, I totally support the man. I support what he is standing for, and I stand for him. And I hope that more people stand for him, and I hope some people that watch this video just at least have a better understanding. If you're not going to agree, that's one thing. You know, it's not about converting, but it is about, if you're gonna make an argument, make it for the right reasons. And all these arguments that y'all making, no, those aren't the right reasons. They just simply aren't. And if you don't want to see what I'm saying, then it's because you don't want to see what I'm saying, you know. And if that's the case, then that's the indictment in itself. The indictment is not with Kaepernick and those trying to speak for what he's speaking about. The indictment is with those that don't want to see. Not him. Because what he's doing is actually the symbol of patriotism. If you want to go by the logic of what patriotism is supposed to be in America. And what the people are doing to try to slander him is kind of like the antithesis of that. But they're the ones that see themselves as the true patriots. It's just funny how this world works, man. The irony is just crazy. Just Super Saiyan level crazy. But anyway, I've rambled for a very long time. For those that even bother to listen to half of this, I salute you and I appreciate you. And I hope that we can come back to this topic, but speak about it from a different perspective next time. Hopefully we'll be speaking about it from the perspective of, it's real nice to see that people got the hint and understood. And with that, I wish us all well, no matter. regardless of the disagreements. And I hope that we all come out the way that, you know, just in a way where we're able to respect each other's belief systems, as long as our belief systems aren't based upon other people's oppression. So with that, I wish you all well, and I hope not to take as long as I took in between this video from the last one. Bless up, everybody. Peace.